Okay, I'm going to answer a question that someone sent me last night. You might hear some sweet little noises in the background from my little granddaughter. All right, this person says, I had a question and God led me right to the answer in his word in Revelation 9. Yes, no repentance after the fifth trumpet. And who repents? These are adults who do not repent. What about the children? What ages are children in the Bible? Would those who are the witnesses' children be spared, or the ones in white robes' children be spared? Grandchildren, do the generational blessings in Deuteronomy apply here? This is such an excellent question. I actually, here's, the word doesn't say, like, from this age, like the Mormons do. They say, well, 8 years old is the age of accountability. Like, for who? For who? Who are we talking about? Everybody has different capacities, and only God knows their capacities. Just because these people rely on science to tell them these boxes and categories of what people are and what their development is and everything else, God is the only one who knows what your capacity is. Not every 8-year-old has the same capacity. Not every 8-year-old is coming from the same home, with the same understanding, with the same wisdom, with the same parents. These are God's children, and he doesn't have to base things on ages. So there's good reason why he doesn't say anything about ages, but I will tell you what he says. Children, unfortunately, are going to be punished for the sins of the parents. They're going to experience consequences because of the sins of their parents, because their parents wouldn't get it together. It doesn't mean that they won't be saved because of the sins of the parents, but they will experience those consequences. And many of you, as first generation coming into the actual truth, have experienced consequences as the result of the sins of your parents. And it feels like you're swimming upstream, trying to heal from all of the damage that has been done generation to generation. That's what God's talking about. It's not some woo-woo thing like you need to say some prayer and do some ritual for the intergenerational sins and, all of this counterfeit stuff that is taught in counterfeit Christianity. That's all that's being discussed here. And I don't think for one second this person is even implying that, by the way. I mention it because I know that these are false doctrines that exist. Thankfully, even in all of this, God is so gracious and merciful to call us back. So he tells us, no one is going to die for the sins of another person. Not even a child is going to die for the sins of their parents. Someone whose parent was involved in sin and the child turns from that sin, they're going to be saved. It's going to be an upward battle. And so, think about this. If you as a parent go and return to God, how blessed are your children going to be? He blesses to the 1,000th generation of those who love him. And then how much more blessed are your grandchildren going to be, provided that your children remain in that righteousness. I want you to remember that the word says that even if Noah, Daniel, and Job were there, they could not save their children. They could save only themselves. This is the pattern of God. But I also want to remind you that there are children whose angels see the face of God. That's what Jesus said. These children, their angels, see the face of God. So while I can't answer this answer in a packaged sort of answer, like at this age, all the children that are 8 years old and younger are going to be saved, because 8 years old is the magic number of accountability, like the Mormons teach. That's what I was raised with. What I can tell you is what the scriptures actually say. And what the scriptures say is that little children's, the angels, the representatives, the angels of children see the face of God. Matthew 18:10. See that you do not despise one of these little ones, for I tell you that their angels in heaven always see the face of my Father in heaven. You see? There it is. So there is indication that they are protected. There is not indication that they are protected here in terms of having to endure the consequences, the pain of what their parents created. And you know what? That stinks. It stinks. We've all experienced that. And many of us have done this to our children, where our children had to experience the consequences of our idolatry, the consequences of our wickedness. How much more do we have a responsibility, if we recognize that, if we see it, to change and to go and return to God instead of setting ourselves up as an idol to them or setting ourselves up to lord over them what we now know that we're now telling them, you got to get it together. How long did it take for us to get it together? Far longer. The best thing you can do for your kids is go return to God. And God will raise you to walk in the authority that he's given you. Go return to God. Fast for them. Pray for them. But become changed yourself so that they can see your lived testimony. And then they can believe instead of resenting your hypocrisy. I'm not speaking to any one person about this. I speak to myself first. That if I don't live this out, I have no business even speaking about it. Just like Paul said, I have to do the very things that I'm preaching to you, lest I disqualify myself. So, yes, correct. We're talking about repentance. We're talking about adults returning, whatever that even means, right? Like, I mean, maybe not even adults, teenagers too. I don't know. There's not an age, there's not like an age cutoff that God gives us. And I think that's for good reason, because he's the one who's going to determine the heart. Little children, they're the angels of these little children always see the face of our Father in heaven. Unfortunately, little children are going to experience such pain as a result of wicked parents. But I believe, based on Jesus' statement, that they will be saved. Okay, I want to focus on this question here. Would those who are the witnesses' children be spared, or the ones in white robes' children be spared? Now, are we talking about adult children? Because no one is going to be saved because of the righteousness of another person. My children are going to be here during these 3.5 years of the Antichrist reign. They're going to be here. If my righteousness didn't save them or spare them from having to go through that. Believe me, if I had the choice, I would be taking my children with me. I mean, I have said so many times in the last few days that it doesn't matter where I go. I can't imagine not missing my children. I can't imagine not being able to share my testimony with them or be here for them, but God knows best. I don't want them to have to go through this, but I also don't know what's good. I don't know the work that needs to be done in them in order for them to be saved. So she goes on to say, will they be spared? What about grandchildren? Do the generational blessings in Deuteronomy apply here? Generational blessings, in part, have to do with a blessed life that doesn't necessarily, we're not talking about like, a blessed life in the way that counterfeit Christians talk about a blessed life. They think that money means they have a blessed life, and they have no idea how opposite that is. So the blessings intergenerationally have to do with lived righteousness and that example of righteousness, shared righteousness, encouraging each other toward the finish line. Those are blessings. Those are the blessings of God. And some of you are going to be like, oh, darn, didn't want that. Well, get out of the way then. Some of you I know really don't have that heart. Like, you really don't actually want the things of God. You want the things that you think are God is about, that you have really, prostituted yourselves to the world, and then you make up this image of God. The blessings intergenerationally have to do with righteousness. They have to do with being in God's kingdom. They have to do with, by the way, being lowly in this life. It is enough to have the blessing of God keeping you and your children and your grandchildren and great-grandchildren in his name, to serve him, to be a kingdom of priests. That is blessing. That you're remaining in the name, the purpose, the thing he's fulfilling, the thing he's doing, his will. It's enough to have that blessing, right? And he'll take care of you. He'll provide for you. But you're not going to live according to the world. It's not going to be some counterfeit Christian version of blessing. And ultimately, the greatest blessing will be that salvation that you get at the end. I feel reminded of like what I used to see, because a lot of my life I spent looking at other people and thinking, especially because of the way that I was raised and the lack of belonging and rejection and stuff like that in my family that was so prevalent, and just the way they bite each other in my family. I was always looking at the outside and trying to figure out, okay, who do I need to be like? Oh, I want that. I want to look like that. I want to talk like that. I want to have that. I want to, So I would see, actually, at certain points in my life, counterfeit Christians who had wealth and who had a family that got together, and like they had this sense of belonging, and oh, they seem so spiritual, and they seemed so connected, but really it was just counterfeit Christianity. They looked good. No one was suffering. They had wealth. None of these things are of God, guys. Now I'm going to tell you what I've learned at the end of my life. At the very end of my life, when God has just stripped me down, I have a family who lives paycheck to paycheck. Right now, my kids need to purchase a car battery for their car, and that's a really expensive purchase for them. And it throws everything off because they don't have anything to save by the time they've paid their bills. And on top of it, they took their homeless mother in to live out the last 30 days of her life. I think it was a little bit more than 30 days, maybe a month and a half when I moved in with them. And so they took this burden on. Their menopausal mother-in-law who needs the air down, who has to have the air down and runs their ice machine all day. When most of the time they have the air set higher so that they aren't ending up with a big electric bill. We're not rich. They're not rich. They're not even financially comfortable at all. But you know what we have? And nor are we dressed in anything fancy. The majority of the time, I'm wearing a t-shirt and lounging shorts. That's what I wear. Because that's all I have. I have one pair of shoes that are flip-flops. I had endless amounts of wealth to buy whatever it was I ever wanted. And I was never going to have to worry about that again. 2 properties. I bought a building. I had a house in a wealthy neighborhood. This is what I have now. And so this is what we look like. And the things that we do for fun are like go on walks with our family at night. Make special meals together. Sit around and talk about what God is doing with us on a daily basis to encourage each other toward the finish line. We're suffering and we don't have friends. We don't have friends out there because no one really wants to know truth. No one cares about what it is that's important to God. And so this life can be lonely at times, filled with a lot of grief because the people that we talk with about the truth completely reject it. We're grieving, we're mourning, we're poor. We're doing all of the things. We are all of the things that Jesus talked about. Blessed are the poor in spirit, those who mourn, the meek, those who hunger for and thirst for righteousness, the merciful, the pure in heart, the peacemakers, those who are persecuted because of righteousness, those who are insulted and persecuted and falsely slandered with all kinds of evil because of God. You can't judge by your carnality. I just want you to understand what it means to actually be blessed. I am blessed. I have a family who I did not have before. I wasn't capable of having it because I hadn't returned to God and I hadn't become who I needed to be in order to actually be connected with them, in order to walk in the trust that I've been given, in order to be reconciled, and in order to be moved to become the person I needed to be so that I could actually be worth something to my kids. God had to bring me there. But in order for me to be brought there, I had to humble myself and I had to be healed as an individual before I could actually be used by God in the trust that He's given me. But I have no misunderstandings anymore about what it is to be blessed. That image of what it is to be blessed it no longer deceives me. It reminds me of David saying, that he was envying for a moment. He was envying the wicked. Their bodies are strong and they have no troubles and they just go on amassing wealth and all this stuff. And that he began to envy them until he sat in the counsel of God and contemplated what their fate actually is. Okay, so let's move on to her next set of questions. You may have answered this in Revelation study. Are the beasts literal? Think Jurassic Park movie. No, they are not literal. Or spiritual or symbolism. Do you include current happenings with each trumpet in the Revelation study, such as mentioning the propaganda campaign to worship fake Israel? Yes. I mean, these are questions actually that you're asking that need to be answered in several videos. What I would highly recommend is that you go through the Revelation study playlist that's on this channel. That is going to help you understand. That would be like the first place that I would say, go there. That's going to help you to understand the times and what we've been living through, and what these different beasts are. But I'll just say right off the bat, a beast is a system. It's a government or a system of governments, like a string of governments. But then you have these 8 kingdoms, or these eight kings, or if you see like the dragon in Revelation, the 7 kings or 7 crowns that it's wearing. So let me just explain that real quick. It's very quick. In Daniel 2, we see that there are 5 kingdoms that are discussed, and they're represented in like a head of gold, chest and arms of silver, belly and thighs of bronze, legs of iron, feet partly of iron and partly of baked clay, because it's a divided kingdom. Okay, so the head of gold, we're already told, is Babylon. We're told that Nebuchadnezzar is representing Babylon, and we're told that it's Nebuchadnezzar. So all you have to do is count down from there. Babylon fell to Medo-Persia, Medo-Persia fell to Greece, Greece fell to pagan Rome fell to papal Rome. Papal Rome began the kingdom of the Antichrist. It is a divided kingdom. Now in Revelation 17, you have 8 kingdoms. The 8th kingdom is one of the 7, but we also have other clues that it's actually one of the 5. So we know that it's the 5th kingdom. We know that for certain, because we're told that the rock that strikes the statue is going to strike it at the 5th kingdom. Also in Revelation 17, it talks about Babylon the Great, and it says Babylon the Great has prostitute daughters that bore out of her. That's Revelation 17:5. So we have Babylon the Great, the harlot Catholic Church, papal Rome. The prostitutes that bore out of her are those who continue in her prostitutions. Easter, Christmas, tithing, which was already fulfilled, making God's house a marketplace, setting up structures that they call churches, in which a priest or some human being, not co-laborers, but some human being is exalted at a pulpit, a priest, a pastor, and you have no responsibility in your covenant. You're not doing what Paul taught in 1 Corinthians 14, where each of you, brothers and sisters, brings something to the assembly to build the church, because, you're co-laborers building God's house. You haven't been doing that. Okay? Prostitutes that bore out of her. Also, they use the image of the cross. Not supposed to set up an image. I don't know what people don't understand about that. Not a dove, not a cross, not a fish, not a flag, not a star. Okay? No images. We're already told in Daniel 2 that from that 5th kingdom on, that it's going to be a divided kingdom. So now we have the division coming out. So we have Babylon the Great, the harlot Catholic Church, the prostitutes that bore out of her, the false prophet who they hand their authority over to, the false prophet who creates the image of the Antichrist, which is fake Israel, counterfeit Israel. Israel are God's people. Israel are not descended from anything. That's the kingdom of the Antichrist. And that 8th kingdom, fake Israel, the image of the Antichrist, is what's going to rise in the very end. Wonder if that's happening at the very time that I tell you there's 1 day left for the witnesses to complete their testifying. And then that image of the Antichrist is going to be the persecuting power. You want to talk about World War III? That's World War III. We're told in Revelation 13, this is the thing that they're going to worship. They are worshiping it. And that this is the persecuting power that's going to require you to worship it and receive its mark on your forehead or your right hand, or be killed. The false prophet, which is the United States, is going to require you to worship it. Are they doing that? Yep, they're doing that. Or you're not going to be able to buy or sell. So discern the times. Are we there yet? Now, I told you a beast is a system or government, or a system of governments. And the woman is seen in Revelation 17 riding the beast. This means that the woman, church, in Revelation, a woman is a church. If there are women, they're false churches. You already know that right off the bat. If it's a woman, you need to discern whether that is a good woman or a bad woman. Zion is the only good woman. Only one church, not a divided kingdom. God doesn't have a divided kingdom. A divided kingdom will not stand. The woman is riding the beast because the woman is controlling government. Are we there yet? Is church controlling government? Yes, it is. Not a good woman, not a good church. She's all dressed in gold and has a cup filled with all the abominations. Okay, so that's a little sneak peek. Listen to the Revelation study. It's going to help you to understand. Okay, thank you for your questions. Those were really good questions, and I'm glad that I had an opportunity to be able to answer them. Please discern this message with God.